get comfy in your little meditation spots. I am going to light some incense. This is some lavender incense that I got from the lavender farm here in Arizona, which has some really beautiful calming energy to kind of set. And with that smoke, will allow it to take up emotions, energies, and things that we are releasing. So I'd like everybody to take a deep cleansing breath in, and that's a breath in through your nose, expanding your lungs, and then exhale out through your mouth. And so we'll deep breathe in again. One, kind of pause and hold that breath, and then exhale. Deep breathe in again. Pause and exhale. Deep breathe in again. Pause and exhale. As you continue to deep breathe in, I would like you to recognize any chaotic, fear-based emotions, any stressful emotions that you might be holding on to. And I just want you to recognize those emotions. Recognize that fear is not a bad thing, that fear can reflect our subconscious attempting to protect us from something or someone. And so negative emotions are a reflection that we have a subconscious that is working actively to protect us. And that protection is okay. But what is not okay is to reside and to live and to exist and to allow fear-based emotions to have active control within our lives. So we're going to release any of those fear-based emotions now. As you deep breathe in and then exhale out, envision that you are pushing out with your breath any fear, any resentment, any anger, any worries, any doubts. And as you breathe in, we breathe in pure white light. We breathe in healing white light. We breathe in generosity, kindness, and understanding. We breathe in peace and balance and knowledge. We breathe in healing and exhale out any sadness or illness that is retained in our body. Pardon me. Feel love and gratitude for your body, your subconscious, your soul, and your mind. And say thank you. Thank you for your body, for your healing, past, present, and future. We feel gratitude. And when you feel refocused and recentered, you can start to kind of move your body again. Wiggle your fingers and your toes and come back to the room. Thank you for everybody participating with that and allowing us to kind of reset the chaotic energy. There is so much that goes in with healing generational trauma. Generational traumas have been scientifically proven through epigenetics to be passed from generation to generation to generation. One of the most profound studies that I've read is of Holocaust victims. And they studied Holocaust victims, they studied their children and even their grandchildren. And they found, based on those traumatic experiences, that their grandchildren were either more or less resilient based on the experiences that their grandparents had. So if their grandparents became more resilient and stronger because of their Holocaust experience, then their generations after also were stronger. Now, if they were weakened in some way, say that there was, struggle with lack of food, then it would also equally negatively impact the future generations. And so we can look at, in the Holocaust, there was a lack of food. So those generations after would experience easier weight gain. And holding on to that generational weight as a protection. So, the body goes, oh my gosh, I was in danger. At this long time, my ancestor was in danger. So therefore, I am in danger anytime I go without food, or anytime that there's a possibility I might go without food. So there is going to be a genetic predisposition carried within your genetic DNA, your code, even your spiritual body code, that we need to gain weight, we need to hold on to weight, we need to eat food. And so that generational trauma gets passed on through those experiences. Now, generational trauma and experiences can happen in other ways, that they're not just really dramatic experiences like the Holocaust. They can be any sort of experience that is emotionally impactful on you or an ancestor. So there's many times that I have gone through with clients, and we have found an emotion or an experience or a trauma that's ingrained in their DNA. And then we dig deeper and we're like, oh, wait, this is coming from an ancestor. This isn't even yours. So the original source of injury or trauma may have come from a grandmother or a great grandmother or generations back. And it continues to affect those generations, because if they didn't heal it, they're going to pass it on to the next generation. And if that generation doesn't heal it, it gets passed on, and it keeps going and going and going almost indefinitely. And it is one of the reasons I believe that we are such a sick population right now, is because we not only have all our shit to heal and deal with, but all our ancestors' shit as well, from hundreds of generations and years before us. And we may not always know why this is, or you might have an ancestor or a family member that's like, oh yeah, XYZ disease is hereditary in our family. Well, those diseases are hereditary based on the emotional, spiritual, and traumatic experiences that your ancestors have experienced, because every physical illness has a spiritual and an emotional counterpart and cause. So, if we look at people who carry liver disease, for instance, someone who says, okay, well, liver disease is inherited in my family. Why is that inherited? Okay, it's inherited probably because there is an ancestor who had a lot of pissed off emotions, held on to a lot of anger and resentment, turmoil type emotions deposited in their liver. And then those emotions through epigenetics get passed on generation to generation to generation. And so when it hits you, it gets triggered and turned on when you start experiencing anger and resentment and those emotions. And so this is why you will see some family members where the genetic expression and the illness starts to express, because they have those similar emotions that switch that on, and the body starts to get sick. Because as we are weak spiritually, we become weak physically. And so as we strengthen our body spiritually, we can also strengthen and heal those physical and emotional counterparts that we have inherited. And so generational traumas, one of the things that I recommend, if possible, it's not always possible for everybody, depending, like if you're adopted or things like that, it may be harder, but I really suggest going in and learning your family history. There's a fantastic website called Relative Finder, which is connected to, I believe it's ancestry.com. And so you do your family tree on ancestry.com, and then you go into relativefinder.org. And I'm going to show you mine in a second here, where it will tell you a lot of like the famous people or infamous people that you're related to. And it's going to help you understand a little bit more some of where your inherited things are coming from. I find it a really fun exercise because, like, for me, one of the people I know I'm related to is like Jesse James. Okay, so we know Jesse James is like this infamous outlaw, and he did a lot of really infamous bad stuff. So we can understand if someone has doing infamous bad stuff, we can understand like some of his history. There's a lot of history we can look into and we can say, okay, I know where certain emotions are coming from. So I know where to go back in my family lineage, how far to go back and heal that. Now, you don't need to know this to heal it, right? But it's extremely helpful. It makes it a little bit easier. So, you know, one of the other ancestors that I have is like Mary Queen of Scots is my great aunt. Okay, so we know what had happened with Mary Queen of Scots. She lost her voice, her ability to speak up for herself. She was imprisoned. She was not heard. So I have a throat chakra imbalance, which manifests in a thyroid condition. And so I know in part, probably all the way back 14 generations, I got a little bit of that throat chakra issue from that side of the family. Now, it doesn't mean that it didn't come from other sides as well, but to me, it's really helpful to look at this and say, aha, I see the connections, because there's, especially when they're more famous people, there's history that you can look up and a lot of documented history that can help lead you kind of down this pathway. Now, so I'll kind of show it to you really briefly. I don't want to get into it too much, only because we spent so much time trying to figure out my computer situation. So I apologize. I don't know, is it Mercury retrograde or something? So this is what the website looks like. And I'm just going to log in here and get in there. Luckily my password is hidden. And this is what it's going to look like. So now you guys now know my maiden name, which is sweet. So everybody knows my maiden name now. Sometimes it takes a little bit to load up. Sometimes it's a little glitchy. It's kind of like a beta thing. So we will see if it actually functions, but I'll just show you briefly how it works, but it does connect, with Family Search is the ancestry genealogy website that this one connects to. So, you know, you don't have to know your ancestry or genealogy, but it's just, to me, it's kind of maybe the nerd part of me, but it's very, very interesting and exciting. So, you can see all here, like we'll click here, famous people I'm related to. And a lot of these are distant relatives. So, okay, I'm connected to like Bing Crosby, William McKinley. I don't even know exactly who that is. Sorry, I kind of don't know a lot of famous people. Or like,
he was a president who got shot in the US.
Oh, so there we go. Okay, so William McKinley, we'll click on him and it'll say, okay, this is how I'm connected. So this is a president that got connected. So he's my sixth cousin. So you can look at like, okay, William McKinley, let's see, let's look him up. Oops, if I can type here. Hopefully you guys can still see my, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So William McKinley, let's see, we'll look up, I want to see. So he was a president, he was assassinated. So if we can look up and find out where he was shot, where his injury was, this can actually tell us about the emotional stuff that may have been passed on through the epigenetics, through that stuff. Because obviously this is a very traumatic, you know, generational trauma that energetically is going to get pushed through to future generations. Because if someone has a traumatic death, it means that there's so many emotions and energies that are built up that they're literally at the breaking point and there's just no stopping it. And so he has probably attracted that energy to him in some way. So let's see, cause of death was assassination. And let's see, there's a picture of it. So revolver was concealed. And so he actually ended up dying of an infection. So he was shot, but then his death actually came from an infection. So if we look at infections spiritually, that's saying things were emotionally out of control, spiritually out of control for him. He felt like a loss of control, that things were just snowballing. And most likely for him, if someone gets to the point of like, we have an infection that's going to cause death. So like I had my infection, my sepsis. Sepsis says, infections that get to the point of causing death are saying like there's a great need to shift the path and direction that you're on, that you are on the wrong path and direction for your soul purpose, and that there's a great need to change immediately. He was probably very resistant to changing his path and resistant to changing things. And we can actually find this. He was reluctant to accept security. He was resistant to change. He was shot in the abdomen. So abdomen, solar plexus, means he was not trusting his intuition, not trusting his gut instincts, and probably moving away from using that solar plexus energy, which is a great strength. So generationally, now let's look at me. I have a solar plexus imbalance. Very interesting. So now we know solar plexus imbalance. We're going to probably see anybody in the family line lineage connected with this guy have gut imbalances, stomach issues, and probably going to be prone to any sort of stomach or digestive issues because of that. So, and it is actually pretty true about my family line. We have food allergies, stomach sensitivities, and things like that. So that's really, really kind of like a quick perspective on a very long snowball thing. But hopefully, does that kind of make sense to you guys about how things get passed on genetically? So he never healed. He never listened to his gut instincts. He was too resistant to change, never opened up. And, his life was cut short due to that, but that genetically was passed on. So Des says, according witnesses, his last words of the hymn, nearer to my God to thee. Okay, what's really interesting too? That is actually one of my favorite hymns. Very weird. And so I had no idea that that was his favorite hymn, and it is actually one of mine. So he's a sixth cousin. He's pretty distant relative, but remembering this spiritually, that we are all one. We're like an interconnected web. And even all of us that are in this room right now are interconnected for a reason. There is a reason we are together. There is a reason we're in this class together, learning together, and wanting to heal the generational trauma together. There's no coincidences, if I can say, in life. And so it's very, very interesting how things work out and the people that you are connected. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the people you're connected to. You might find very interestingly that a friend might have a similar ancestor or things like that. And those things can reflect also what you need to heal. Now, I will recommend a couple books if you guys want to get really, really into this. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van de Kolk, and It Didn't Start by You by Mark Boylan are a couple really good books on healing trauma and generational trauma, so that you can continue your healing journey, because healing generational trauma is layers upon layers upon layers, and it is threads upon threads upon threads. And so this class tonight will get you started on that journey. But it's a journey that I want you to continue on, and continue learning about and understanding more. Notice things about your family, notice things about your genetic line. Does your family have trust issues with outsiders? Or does your family have issues with anxiety? Or maybe your family's overprotective of their children, like helicopter parent, even when there's no real threat of danger. These can all kind of signal some generational traumas that you can work on. And there's so many levels of this. You can go back all the way to the beginning of time. You can go back generation after generation after generation. And, when we look at generational trauma, it is layers of healing. And I talk about this a lot with my clients, that healing is kind of like an onion. You have this layer of this onion, and you peel it back and you cry and you release, and then you peel it back and you cry and release some more. And it's kind of this never ending process. I think, in a lifetime, I would love to say that we could completely heal every trauma, every generational trauma, but I don't know. I don't know how possible it is. I think that healing is this kind of never ending journey, but that it is possible to break the cycles of that intergenerational trauma that is really disrupting our lives. And so, when we look into like the steps of healing of generational trauma, you've really taken the first step by just coming to this class, just by recognizing that, okay, there's something going on. There's something that I've inherited that's not mine, but that I'm going to be the one that steps up, that I'm going to break the chains, and I'm going to start healing these patterns and these behaviors that can feel difficult and impossible to heal, but, can have very profound effects if we continue to move forward and heal. Thank you, Des, for posting those links. Is this how cancers are inherited and continue to snowball as the list grows? New generations keep adding without healing prior trauma. That is in part, yes. Keeping in mind that only 5% of cancers are actually inherited. So most cancers are actually first generational cancers, and you guys can Google how that works. But from my research and my knowledge, only 5% are actually inherited cancers. So, you can inherit very intense emotions. I have a client whose mother actually was a Reiki master. I use this term loosely, but would project her negative emotions into her daughter. And her daughter ended up with cancer through no fault of her own, at least on the spiritual side. It was a very weird, rare cancer in like her shoulder bone. And it was, the doctors couldn't even figure out what happened or how she got it. And when I connected to her energy, I saw her mother pushing all the negative energy into her child. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And I know, to me, it even sounds weird saying this, because it's like, that's like the oddest thing to think about, that a parent is passing on this energy to a child, but it does happen quite often. And remember that children are in a stage of innocence and perfection in their energy up until they're about 8 to 10 years old. And so any illness that occurs in a child prior to that is almost always going to be inherited, or something that is projected or absorbed from the parents. And I hate to blame parents on it, but that's typically the emotional, spiritual connection, or it's going to be from a toxic chemical exposure that can start those things, because children are innocent to a certain point, to where they start making decisions that can affect their own well-being. And I know that kind of sucks to say that, but like my kids who have asthma, Asthma is smother mother energy. I'm a recovering smother mother. I'll admit it. I was one of those kids where my parents let me run rampant. I had no rules as a child. And so when I became a parent, I didn't know what rules to have. So I had all the rules and had very strict things. I was a smother mother. And energetically, my kids got asthma. Now we can argue, yes, it's from food allergies and environmental exposures and things like that. But, you know, if that is true, then everybody who ate a certain food or everyone that was exposed to a certain environmental toxin or, you know, an allergen would end up with asthma, right? So we have to look at like what is true is, you know, we have an exposure, but the exposure and the emotions created the weakness within the lungs. And the weakness in the lungs for asthma is that smother mother, I can't take a deep breath. I can't make my own choices. I have no way out energy. I have no autonomy, and creates asthma that way. So when someone is feeling like they have no choice in their life, no autonomy, you're going to definitely see asthma. And you know what? I actually even developed asthma at 35 because I was living in my mother-in-law's home. My mother-in-law made every choice for me down to what the clothes I was that I wore. And you know what happened when I took my power back? Asthma symptoms went away. Go figure. So, you know, what causes lymphedema? It is the part that takes out your fixings from your liver and your first defense against illness and causes extreme swelling. So what I understand of lymphedema is it's the body's inability to process and release toxins. And so, you know, you look at, and this is kind of going off topic of what we're learning from, but this is like, I have an inability to process my emotions. I'm holding on, I'm not understanding emotions. You know, and I can go very much more in depth. So maybe towards the end of the class, I'll talk more about what spiritual connections are to certain diseases. But, you know, just know that, you know, any disease that's inherited is typically because the emotions and traumas have been passed through. And so once we understand that, we can understand kind of how to heal it. We can break those chains. We can break the neural networks, the hormones, the patterns, you know, and create new possibilities and new lives. So like if you look at me, I have 7 children. 2 of my children from one marriage, one from the and then the rest from the other. My first daughter had a problem with being with abusive boyfriends, narcissistic, controlling partners. Well, that's something I had an issue with. I had abusive ex. My mom married 4 different abusive guys. So we had a family pattern of marrying abusive people. Now, I stopped my pattern after my daughter was born, got remarried to someone who was not abusive, who was nice and kind and generous. And those children after, guess what? Actually wouldn't tolerate abusive behavior. My next daughter dated a guy that tried to be abusive and controlling. First date out, and she recognized it. She's like, sayonara, see ya, sucker. And walked away from it because I had shifted that pattern. And so that energy had shifted, and we also had different inherited emotions. And so that pattern is now shifted from those children on that are connected to me and my husband. Now, my daughter, who married or was engaged to the narcissist, still has to heal that section for her because there's a little bit of missing pieces. I've healed myself all the way up to her. Now she has to accept her healing. So, you know, first step, recognizing patterns. Is there a pattern of domestic violence? Is there a pattern of abuse, anxiety, gender roles, things like that? Building awareness, becoming self-aware is going to be so vital to your healing. For me, you know, sometimes I will not quite recognize an action or reaction that's triggered by my trauma or my generational traumas right away. But then after I sit with it a moment, I'm like, oh shit, that's coming out. Okay, I see it, and I'm able to kind of step back and say, oops, okay, that's a generational trauma coming through, so like yelling is a generational trauma that we carry in my family. My dad's a yeller. I was a yeller. I'm not anymore, but I was. My grandparents were yellers. And so, like, I can't remember how long ago, it was a little bit ago, but I yelled at my daughter, my youngest one, and she's like, I don't like it when you yell at me, and da, 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 da. And I pause for a second. I go, you know what? You're right. Yelling at you was not the appropriate response. I apologize for that. I'm still learning how to communicate without yelling, and sometimes I make a mistake. And that wasn't okay for me to yell at you, even though I was frustrated. And so I was able to have that self-awareness enough to step back and say, oh, yeah, I made a mistake. The generational trauma was popping through. That generational dragon was, and I was able to say, stop, hold on, I see it. And the more you recognize it, the more you see it, the more you're going to be able to stop it in its tracks and stop it before it happens. And so now when I feel like the yelling monster come up, I'm like, deep breath in. Why do I feel like yelling? Okay, I feel unheard. What do I need to feel heard? What do I need for someone to recognize this part in me? What do I need to expand my throat chakra? And I take that time and space to process versus just jumping into a generational trauma response. And so as you work on it, it's going to become easier and easier to recognize, as they're yelling, disrespect, feeling devalued or manipulation, physical aggressions, bullying, things, anything. That list can be endless. That's a generational trauma or pattern that's coming up. If there's a trigger, and becoming aware of the triggers. And then once you're aware of those triggers, you can shift how you react to them. You can take a second to take a deep breath, to walk away, to kind of recognize, how do I react with those things, and how can I shift and react in a more healthy pattern? Because healing goes beyond just like the spiritual part, but it'll take some work. It'll take some work to set up new patterns and to change new patterns. And I want you guys to recognize as you heal that there's going to be three things that happen in your life. And this is the people around you and your family members are going to have different reactions and actions to you healing this trauma. So they're either going to go, oh, wow, this is amazing. I love what you're healing. Can I come heal with you? Can you show me what you're doing? And they're going to follow you on your healing journey, and you're going to grow together, and it's going to be amazing. Or, and this has kind of happened with my dad. I had to set boundaries with my dad, and I had to say, Dad, I love you too much to argue. I'm going to talk to you when you're nice and sweet. And I'd have to hang up on him, shut him down, and things like that. And eventually he recognized my boundaries and my new patterns. And now our conversations are healthier and happier. Now I set boundaries with my mom, and I'm, Mom, these are my boundaries. I don't like the behavior. This is my new behavior and what I find acceptable. My mother did not like that. And my mother has separated herself out of my life, and I have not talked to her in a while. So people may fade out of your life. And I want you to be prepared for that, because it can still hurt a lot. It can feel and open up old abandonment wounds. It can trigger you, and it's going to make you feel a little bit hurt and lost. I'm not going to lie. Just because it's healthy doesn't mean it's going to hurt. It's not going to hurt. And so it hurt like hell. Like, I literally cried last night to my husband. Do you ever think I'm going to hear from my mom again? Do you think she's okay? Do you wonder where she is? And it still hurts, but it's much healthier for her to be out of my life. And she chose to separate out of my life when I healed, because I said, hey, this behavior is not healthy. I'm not going to feed into your behaviors anymore. And she didn't like that. And she separated herself out of my life. So be prepared as you heal that there are going to be people who are not going to want to heal with you. And that's going to be okay. Can I use my gifts to know where my mom is? I actually tried And I will tell you that when I am really close to the situation and attached to the outcome, that my readings and things like that, I struggle with it. And so I, thought I kind of figured out where she was. And then somebody had spotted her last year before last, and it was completely in a different place. And so I don't know. I think that my gifts are inaccurate with that because I do want to find her. I do want to help her heal, and I do miss her. And so, um, yeah, my gifts sometimes are great with finding stuff, but I will tell you, a finder of things and persons, I am typically not. It's not my strongest suit for my spiritual gifts. Everybody's got good spiritual gifts. Mine is, I lose my car keys all the time. I have a tile thing on my car keys because I lose it all the time. I actually lost my purse earlier today too. And it was like in the bathroom, and I lose things often, and my spiritual gift is not as functional when it comes to finding stuff. I'll just be real. I'm always honest with what I'm good at and what I'm not, and finding things is not my best things. So the third thing that's going to happen, and this is typically going to happen if you're dealing with a narcissistic meanie or someone with an abusive personality, is they're going to go, no, I don't like where you are. Like kind of that Karen thing. I don't like where you are. I don't want you to heal. Why don't you just come back down here where I'm comfortable with you? And they're going to try to derail your healing. They're going to try to pull you down. They're going to try to hurt you. And those are the people that you have to say, if you're not going to listen to my boundaries, I'm going to have to separate you from my life. And, I had this recent experience with a business partner where I set boundaries and she railroaded them. And I'd set another boundary and she'd railroaded. And it was becoming very disruptive for my mental and physical health. And so I finally said, look, this has got to change. And if it doesn't, I cannot be involved in this partnership and relationship anymore. And she railroaded again. And so it was one of the hardest things I had to do in my life, but I had to say, I have to love myself most, and this is not healthy for me, and I need to separate myself from this experience and walk away. Now, I always leave the door open that if someone heals and they're going to be able to have healthy boundaries, of course they can come back into my life, because if I can heal from being, the dramatic Karen crazy that I was 20 years ago, anybody can heal. And so I want to give the same space to someone else to say that, yeah, if you heal, come back in. That's fine. But they need to recognize, hey, I know I needed some healing work, and I know you have boundaries, and I'm willing to accept your boundaries and have a healthy relationship. So just know that as you are healing, that one of those three things will typically happen with the people in your life. And even though you're prepared for it, it's still going to sting a little bit if they separate out of your life. But sometimes it's a little easier knowing that things are going to get a little bit weird. Setting up a support, so when we put up those roadblocks and those patterns, set up a support system, find someone, either a counselor, a therapist, a life coach, who can be your support system to help you recognize if you're going down the wrong path again, if your triggers are taking control of you, if the old emotions are coming back. Find someone that can kind of hold you accountable and help kind of prevent you from going down your rabbit hole, because generational trauma doesn't heal overnight. And when you have a really strong support network, it's going to help you grow. And so I talk about this often with my clients, that we create layers of healing. You have doctors, therapists, life coaches, and it creates a very firm and strong foundation that can help us with our healing process. Is it along the same line as when people in your life refuse to acknowledge your changes and growth, constantly bringing up how you were or the things that you used to do? I guess essentially refusing to believe that you are capable of change and putting you in a box you weren't allowed out of. Yeah, that is along the same line. People who know your unhealed version are going to have a really hard time recognizing and reconciling with your healed version. This is even going to be true like in your place of work. I have a client who has been healing, and she's pretty high up CEO of a company. And she got fired from her job, or like, it wasn't forcibly fired, but they're like, hey, we really want you to move positions, because when she started healing, all hell broke loose at her work. And she's like, why is this happening? Why, I don't understand what's going on. And I was like, it's because, honey, they hired the unhealed version of you. They knew the unhealed version. And now your healed version is coming in, and they don't understand who you are or how to deal with you. And so she actually accepted the change in position. And because she's still working on healing, it's a little bit weird for her. But just recognize that there may be changes in your job or your work, because the unhealed version of you accepted something as okay, that the healed version is now kind of like, hey, this kind of like job or work is not aligned with me anymore. My unhealed version, when I was an unhealed version, I worked as a florist. I was a manager of a floral department. I did like special event work, Child Help USA, things like that. And when I got healed, my healed version was still trying to figure things out. And I was like, I'm going to go back to being a florist. And I didn't really want to come on this healing path of what I'm teaching right now. I felt very ill-equipped to do it. So I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to go be a florist, because I was a florist before. That was good for me. I can do this. It's fun. So I got a job as a floral manager, well-paying. And I'll tell you what, I was a florist for exactly 3 days before I got in a car accident. And that was the universe going, boop, nope, wrong. That's not your path anymore. You're healed. You're going over here. And so that the universe will try to stop you when you're heading down the wrong path. Car accidents and injuries, near-death experiences, things like that are kind of the universe going, wrong direction, go the other way. And so, just recognize that, everything will shift as you heal, and it will feel uncomfortable. And you may try to do what I did, where you're going back to where you're comfortable, because that's what your subconscious is designed to do, is to put you back where you are comfortable. And so your subconscious will go, hey, are you sure? Are you sure? You want to be over there? Well, try something new. Come on. And it will feel very uncomfortable. And it's like going to the gym, although, I'm obviously not the person that goes to the gym very often. Where as you build new muscles and spiritual muscles and things like that, that it is going to be uncomfortable, that things are going to hurt, it's going to feel weird, it's going to feel different, and that's fine. And so give yourself grace to get to know the new version of you. Give people grace to get to know the new version of you. Understand that the universe will rearrange itself, and that what was okay before will no longer feel okay. And that's all right. And some people will refuse to believe that you can be different and that you can change. My family is one of them. Like my siblings are kind of like, what do you mean you're doing psychic readings all day and you're like this spiritual guru leader person? They're like, because they knew me, the crazy Stacee that used to run around and get tattoos and act like a nut job. And so they're like, and most of my family is pretty supportive of me, but every once in a while, they're you can tell they're still kind of like, this new Stacee's a little weird, Even my husband's recognizing the new Stacee. He's like, okay. And he tells me all the time, he goes, I don't understand you. I don't understand what you're doing. And I tell him, I'm like, it's okay, babe. You don't have to understand me. You don't even have to understand what I'm doing. All I need is for you to love and support me. And so I would say that is the best thing you can tell people as you're healing. They're not going to understand you and say, hey, it's okay. You don't have to understand me. All I need is your love and support. All I need is a hug. I tell my husband, just give me a hug and a kiss and tell me you love me. That's all I need. Do my siblings have spiritual gifts as well? Yes, my sisters. So I'm the oldest of 5, my 2 sisters, and I all have very similar spiritual gifts. They don't really step into theirs or use theirs. I keep telling them, I'm like, there's 3 of us. That can make a really powerful spiritual situation here. We should really bring these things together. And they're like, nah, I don't know about this. Nah. So they're kind of often doing their own things. My brothers, I don't know. If they do, they don't talk about them. My dad is also a medical intuitive. He's a doctor. That works out very well for him. His patients walk in, he knows instantly what's wrong with them. And before you ask for a referral to my dad, he's retiring. So I don't really send people to him. My kids definitely have a lot of spiritual gifts. They're all different and varied, but some of them have very much the same gifts as I do. My husband's very spiritually gifted as well, very gifted healer, but he's very untapped, unhealed version of himself and doesn't use it very much. But I will say, like, if I have a period cramp, dude, if he puts his hand over my uterus, period cramps be gone. He's amazing. So, it's very interesting how that works. So, the last thing I would say too is giving yourself grace. Recognizing that these patterns have been ingrained in you for a very, very long time. That generational trauma, like I've said before, does not heal overnight, over a week, in one class even. It's, I have been on this journey now since about 2016. And every step of the way has led to a different layer being peeled back, a different healing coming through. And it's a journey. And, we have to have grace. You have to understand that your journey is not going to be a straight shot, that it's going to be up and down and sideways and back and forth. And that sometimes you're going to feel stuck. Sometimes you're not going to feel like you're even moving forward. And on those days, recognize that sometimes we need to rest and just process and be still. And I have a lot of my clients who are like, okay, I've healed this. Let's heal the next thing. Let's go, 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 go. And you can't go, 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 go with healing. It's just like this past week, I was sick. And, part of me being sick meant that I had to stop. I had to cancel clients. I had to rest. I had to take vitamins and restore. And when I started coming back in, like this week, I was only able to come in part-time. Now, it's going to be the same with your healing journey, that you're not going to just be able to push through and muscle through, that it's going to be an ebb and a flow. And sometimes you're going to have to kind of take the foot off the gas, be a little more gentle with yourself, take some time to rest, rehydrate, take your vitamins, and have like a period of calm to kind of allow that healing to go. It's kind of like if you have surgery, you're not going to say you go have surgery on your knee, you're not going to start running the next day. And so think about this as a spiritual surgery, that you're not going to just go and kind of jump into this the next day. So when we look at healing that trauma, just be very gentle with yourself. Recognize that this intergenerational trauma that's been passed down from generations to generations, it literally has altered your gene expression. You guys can go down the rabbit hole of epigenetics. Another great author with epigenetics, my favorite, Dr. Joe Dispenza, has some amazing books. And he was literally an integral part of my healing. Becoming Supernatural, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, two really great books. I would suggest, if you're interested in epigenetics, to look into his stuff, because he does a lot of scientific studies that bridge the gap between the spiritual and the scientific. And one of the studies that he did was, he went, and I actually don't know if he did this study or somehow he was either involved or it was in his book. So forgive me, I suck at quoting stuff. But they did this study where they followed these people who were having surgery. And they split up the group, like 50 here and 50 there. And 50 of them, they sent prayers, positive healing thoughts, meditations, healing energy to the one group having surgery. To the other group, they did nothing. They found with the group that they sent prayers and meditations to, that they healed faster, they had better surgery outcomes, they died less. It was just dramatically improved results. Now, the kicker to this study that he did was that they had found that they were actually praying for people who had surgery 20 years in the past. And so I bring this up because what his conclusion was is that we can heal the past. So for me, I have a lot of people who ask me all the time, how did you get through all your trauma? How did you do this and that? And one of the things I started doing just recently this year was praying for my past self, sending prayers and healing, asking angels to protect my childhood self. I also sent prayers and healing and angels and energy back into the past for my parents, for my grandparents. You have that power to call and send that prayers and healing all the way to your past. And so you can visualize, speak their name, and just speak whatever prayers or meditations that you have, whatever your faith or your belief system is, just use that. Meditate on it, send that energy and that healing all the way back to the past. And that is going to be so powerful because it's going to start healing that generational trauma, but it's also going to help heal you. And for me, I recognize that is how I got through things, was because I was healing myself in the past, in the future. And so know, as you do your healing work, that you can send it back generation to your past, to your family's past. Pick a moment. If you know a family member, like you're like, okay, in 1978, I know my mom had a miscarriage, right? I have fear of miscarriage, great fear of losing my child. I never go to a doctor's ever, except for when I'm pregnant and I turn into a hypochondriac mess. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I'm like the neurotic mom that's calling the doctor 52 times, counting kicks and drinking every water and vitamin. And then as soon as I have a baby, I go back to I don't give a shit, never see a doctor person, and, whatever. But I'm a hypochondriac mess. So I know back in 1978, my mother had a stillbirth child. And that is where that energy came from, this fear of pregnancy loss. So I can go back, okay, mom, in 1978, December, whatever, you lost a baby. I'm sending prayer and healing back to that time because I know that that's part of me that needs to be healed. Now, I've already had 7 kids. I'm probably not going to have any more, but healing it within myself can help heal that within my children and to future generations. And so set the intent as you heal that you are healing. As Des asked, can you send healing to the future? Yes, that I am sending healing to the future. And I'm going to do a little meditation with you guys. And with that meditation, I always end my meditation with sending healing backwards to the past, forward to the future, and to all generations and dimensions. And I will kind of show you how to do that now. And just know that there's no right or wrong way to do this, that I want you to feel into what you need, what your family needs, and use what I teach you as a guide and a model versus like a strict rule book. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water, and then we're going to start another meditation. And I'm going to kind of use that to kind of end the class. I'm probably going to take about 10 minutes or so to do that. And then I'll open up to more questions as well. So we're going to start in again with our 3 deep breaths. And these 3 deep breaths, guys, you can use at any time. I have clients who deal with anxiety, and I tell them, you just can get from one breath to the next. And those deep breaths are hugely calming. And so utilize these anytime you feel like you need this in your life of calmness, of peace. 3 deep breaths is going to be very restorative to your nervous system. And so just remember, we're breathing in through the nose, expanding our lungs, and exhaling out. And so we're going to do this deep breath in through the nose. 1, We're going to pause and exhale. Deep breath in 2. Pause and exhale. Deep breath in 3. Pause and exhale. Continue your deep breath in. If you're able, place the tongue on the roof of your mouth to more connect with your energy. And I want you to feel into your body of an area. There's no right or wrong answer to where you feel that you have generational trauma residing. Maybe your heart, your stomach, your body, your spleen, your liver, wherever it is, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to feel into that area. I want you to feel that dense energy, the heaviness of the emotions that have been carried throughout generations. I want you to envision and look beyond that area. Notice that there is a cord that flows out from that area, and that cord goes back generation to generation to generation to the original source of injury. I want you to see if you can follow that cord back as far as you can see with your spiritual eyes. Is this on your mother's side or your father's side? Your grandmother, your grandfather? Ask your body, how many generations does it go back? 1, 2, 8, 30? There's no right or wrong answer. Just whatever comes to your mind is correct. Ask yourself, ask the generations past for permission to send healing back through this cord. And I want you to envision in your right hand that you hold a beautiful white ball of energy. And I want you to take this ball of energy and I want you to put it into your body at that starting point of the cord, wherever that energetic disruption starts. I want you to push in that beautiful white light. And I want you to see that white light pass through your body, through the cord, and start to flow into the generations in the past. And with every generation that it comes to, we ask that that generation allow the healing to come through, to cleanse, to release, rebalance, and restore any generational trauma, any inherited illness, injury, afflictions, or sickness. This beautiful white light will pass through and heal. If there are any generations that reject the healing, we will skip over those generations, allowing them their agency and continuing to push that healing back as far as it needs to go, allowing any in the past who want to receive this energy, any who want to receive this clearing, healing path, they may receive it. And we go all the way back to the original first source of injury, of pain and trauma. And we surround the original person who experienced this trauma with beautiful, loving energy. I want you to envision that you are giving this ancestor a hug, and that from this hug emanates beautiful, beautiful, gentle pink energy, loving, kind energy. And I want you to speak to them love, forgiveness, and gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, the experiences, and the healing. Gratitude for being a strong generation that allowed your genetics to continue to prosper, that allowed you to incarnate on this earth. Tell them thank you. Tell them that you forgive them for any illness and injury they may have unknowingly caused. Give them love and peace and forgiveness. Telling them thank you. And notice that that beautiful pink light flows back through that cord and that connection throughout all generations. Again, restoring, rebalancing with love and peace, the generational trauma as it reaches to you. Take a deep breath in. Notice that that white light, that pink light swirls your body. It begins to flow into your heart. And with every beat of your heart, a beautiful white restorative light flows through your body. That pink light surrounds you on the outside as that white light flows out through the top of your head, out through the limbs, your feet, your arms, and your fingers. And then that beautiful pink and white loving energy surrounds your body, filling any cracks, any crevices, any holes, restoring and rebalancing and releasing any remaining generational trauma, completely healing, supporting, and restoring. And now we push out that light beyond your auric field. We send that light and that energy backwards through time, forward into the future to all posterity and generations after you, sideways on all dimensions, all levels, all planes, up through heaven, down through earth, connecting, grounding, and restoring. We clear and heal all levels, all persons, all beings attached to us, our family, generations past, future, and emotions. We permanently and completely heal and restore. Take a deep breath in. And say thank you. Feeling gratitude for your body, for your mind, for your soul, for your ancestors past and present, for your future generations, for your body's ability to heal both the past, the present, and the future. We say thank you. One more deep breath in. And allow yourself to come back into the room. Wiggle your arms, your legs, your toes, your fingers. Open your eyes and come back in to the room. And come back to yourself and kind of feeling how everything is feeling. Can you send healing to the last if you don't know who your dad is or how to find them? Yes. Just envision, this is what I would say. If you don't know who, you don't know their name, things like that, just say, I am sending healing back to my father. I am sending healing back to my grandparents, or I am sending healing back to the original generation where this illness or injury or emotional or physical trauma started. You know, often I think, you know, we think we have to know so many details. We as humans want to know everything and know these details, but the intent is going to be much more powerful than knowing any detail or ancestry. So just set the intent and envision, just speak it. I am connecting to the past. I am connecting to this ancestor, and I am sending healing back. Do you think that's why many of us in our 30s and younger are choosing not to have kids, to create that hard break of generational trauma? Or does that even work if the different timelines, if we choose another round? So, you know, we're all connected, we are all one. And even if you choose to create a break, remember that if you have any siblings, cousins, aunts, or uncles, that's still being passed on. I think, you know, that yes, in some ways, it is why some people are choosing not to have children or to have fewer children, is because they're like, you know, I can't process, I can't deal with all this trauma, you know, and I don't want to pass it along. However, you know, I would say having children is important because as you have healed children, as you teach children good values, instincts, healing, good knowledge, those children are going to reflect healing. So, like my son James, he came home and he was telling me there was this kid in his class that was bullying him. And he goes, "But it's okay, Mom. I looked back and I saw where his trauma originated, and I knew he was hurt. And so I felt like I wanted to punch him in the nose, but I didn't. I just felt like I wanted to hug him. So I just envisioned that I sent him a hug and I walked away." And so my son knows that healed version, that healed energy. And so he was able to pass on healing energy to another child who was bullying him, and recognizing that child's trauma instead of getting in a fist fight or punching each other in the nose like boys do, things like that. And so, you know, I would say that as you are healing, creating a healed posterity, a healed generation after you, a more self-aware generation that does not carry on toxic masculinity or other toxic traits, is not a bad thing, you know, because the more healed people there are in the world, the more healing is going to be reflected. Because, you know, we talk about how hurt people and it continues on and on and on. Well, healed people as well. And so for me, I healed myself. I'm sharing healing with you guys. Now you're going to go out and heal yourselves, and your healing is going to get shared with other people. And we create what I call like these bubbles of healing. And so, you know, I talk about these often, but it's like, you know, this is my little circle of healing, and all you guys are attached to my circle of healing, and your circles will be attached to other people's circles. And that healing is going to be passed on and on. And so I would, you know, I'm not going to tell everybody go run out and have 7 kids like I did. That was not intentional on my part. That was just happened. But, you know, I would say do not fear having children based on trauma, and just know that by you bringing in a healed generation, that you're going to be able to have more self-aware children that are going to reflect healing and beautiful things throughout new generations. And so don't let your traumas or generational traumas discourage you. You know, you can turn your strengths into, or your weaknesses into strengths. And so I hope that helps. Let's see, I wish you understood that, but knowledge before I had surgery last year, you never have kids now. Well, that's not true. Kids are waiting to be adopted. Lots. And you know, my husband and I actually, we have plans to have foster kids after our kids get a little older, because, you know, there is many children, we committed to having family. We said, okay, like before we came to this earth, we chose our family, right? But there are those that said, hey, I'm going to be born to another family, but I'm eventually going to come to you as my parent because I know there's things that I need to learn from you. And so just know that there are those children that are desperately needing and waiting for beautiful people who are healed and can help them heal. And who better to help a child heal than someone who's already been through it? And so just understand that, being a mother or a parent is not exclusive to giving birth. And just because that's the way I had my children does not mean that I am not a mother and a nurturer to other people that I am not genetically connected to. And there are some of my clients, and I feel this energy with you too, that I call the mother of many energy, which means that you have the ability to mother and nurture many beyond yourself. And that is a beautiful thing. And there are many that are in need of beautiful spiritual beings to support them. It says, does this include mental illness as well? So we're talking about healing mental illness, or that mental illness is being passed on, or what are you, can you clarify that for me? Because I'm not totally sure I'm understanding the question. I think I kind of missed it, but I do believe that you can heal mental illness spiritually. I will say that, I would be irresponsible to tell you to not have support through a good therapist or counselor, or, make sure that you're taking your medications and things like that. But, I believe that there is a possibility to heal anything, physical, mental illness, things like this. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression, and I no longer deal with that. And there is actually a guy on TikTok, I wish I could remember his username. He was diagnosed with psychosis, depression, some pretty heavy duty stuff with some heavy duty medications. And he went within, he started doing yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, spiritual healing, Reiki, and he is now completely rebalanced off medications and has healed. I work with many clients who have mental illnesses that are things that doctors like, this is not fixable, things like this, and they're healing from it. And I believe that as you heal spiritually, you can heal physical and mental illnesses. And as I tell everybody, get your support systems, create your layers of healing. And I do believe you can heal that. If you heal your trauma and you find that people are drawn to you because they know you have something that they are missing. Yes, people, especially if you have a healer's energy, you're going to find that people are just naturally drawn to you. They're going to want to ask you questions. I get this a lot. I get random people coming up to me all the time going, I don't know why, I just feel like I need to hug you. Can I hug you? And I'm like, okay, sure. And they tell me all the time, like, I just feel so healed around you. Even my daughter, she's like, Mommy, I just want to sleep in your room because every time I sleep in your room, I feel healed and happy. And so your healed energy is going to reverberate out almost like a ripple in a pond. And so if you reflect healing and happiness, people are going to feel that from you, or they're going to absorb it from you. And they're going to maybe not even know why, but they're going to feel good around you. And, the saying that we are like the people we spend the most time with is so very much true, that we, and actually Des, who's in this class, taught me this, that we exchange genetics, we exchange DNA with the people that we're around. And so if a healed person is with an unhealed person, if that person is strong in their healing, they're going to create healing for that other person. If that person is weak in their healing, there's also the propensity that that person may also disrupt their healing. So you have to be careful. But as we heal, we will heal people around us, either knowingly or unknowingly, that they'll feel uplifted, sometimes even without understanding why. My children left home at 17 and don't speak to me. due to my childhood trauma and not knowing how to be a mom, because my mom died when I was sick. 6, I want to be a mom more than anything, and I fail because I never healed from my childhood trauma. And they refused to understand. I did the best I knew how at the time. I understand that. I had a lot of trauma too. And my older daughter actually came up to me after talking to my sisters, and she was like, "Oh my God, Mom, I had no idea. I thought you were like this really awful mom when I was growing up. And now I realize a lot of this was your trauma coming out." I was really lucky that she was able to see my trauma, and my children have been able to see me heal actively from my traumas and to grow, and that healing has been passed to them. Now, if they're not open to that, that is their choice, right? It is a sad choice, but it does not mean that you do not have the opportunity to still mother, to still nurture people. I have used my healing to send healing to my grandchildren, to 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 reflect that. So do not feel lost. Feel empowered that you have healed and that you still have the ability to share your healing with other people. And, I would do Ho'oponopono is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And I actually learned this in Des's life coach certification, and I use it all the time. It's a very powerful thing. I would do some Ho'oponopono forgiveness healing. I have a free meditation and class on my website where you can just Google a Hawaiian forgiveness exercise or Ho'oponopono. I would start sending them love and forgiveness, and write them a letter. I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry, and thank you. And you don't even have to send it, just burn it and release it and allow that healing to take place on your side. Send them the love and the forgiveness. And if they choose to come back in and get to know the healed version, then amazing. And that's wonderful. But if not, just know that you did what you could, you healed as you could, and that's the best that we can do. And, send your healing to the past and keep moving towards the future with faith. And I use that a lot driving on Sunday, and it shocked me how well it worked just saying it a few times. I'm telling you, I use it when I'm driving too. People cut me off on the road. I'm like, "Oh, Ono, love you, forgive you. Thank you for being a part of my journey today." Because I don't like to carry on pissed off emotions, And I will tell you, there's a lot of people for me that don't, accept the healed versions of me. My daughter Vanessa is still reconciling with some of the healed versions of me. And I'll ask her, like, "How do you need me to support you? What can I do to help?" And she goes, "Stop asking. It's so weird for you to ask me how I need support because you weren't supportive when I was younger." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, but I'm being supportive now." And so just recognize that it might take people a time to get to know you. And Des just posted a great link for the Ho'oponopono. I'm actually in the process of becoming a certified Ho'oponopono facilitator because I love that process so much. I think it's so beautiful. And I don't know, when did I do my life coach certification? Des 5 years ago, 4 years ago? It's been a while, but I've held on to that ever since because it's been just so powerful to me. If you guys feel like you want to become a certified life coach, I'm going to plug Des because I took my certification. I actually helped her a little bit with her course, so you might see a couple videos with me if you do her online course. But she's got an amazing program that if you ever want to do a more spiritual based life coach certification, that's international coaching and life coach certification, which is what you want if you become a life coach. Her program's amazing. She does online, she does in person, beautiful spiritual retreats in Tennessee. She just had one with Dan, and I wish I could have came, but I was sick last week. I almost got a ticket and came, Dennis. I almost did, but it's a life-changing experience, and one that I would recommend for any of you guys. And I am always up for promoting my friends and programs that I believe in. And hers is one that I absolutely believe in. She's been doing it now. How long have you been doing Radiant? 10
Almost
years?
10 years.
10 years. Yeah. So she's pretty awesome. She was actually the coach for Dr. Axe too. She's got a lot of like famous people under her belt. So I don't know. Do you want to tell them anything about your program? I know that this is impromptu. This wasn't planned, guys, but
No,
you
it
know.
wasn't planned. Yeah, if any of you are feeling called to serve others in a holistic coach capacity, wellness coaching, life coaching, business coaching, definitely check out radiantcoaches.com. I'll give you the Stacee discount, which is pretty significant. But it's a lot of us are considering career pivots right now. So just throwing it out there. And thank you, Stacee, for that compliment. That training you attended 4 years ago was a powerful one.
It really was. It was life-changing for me. And I didn't know there was a Stacee discount. So cool. I will tell you guys that actually was so it was right after I had my spiritual reawakening and my near-death experience. And I went there actually to help support Des growing her business. And I was not expecting it to really be, it's actually where Des helped me uncover my medical intuitive gifts. Remember when you asked us to scan you? And I was like, there's something in your head. And you're like, yeah, but that was like not what I was asking you. And this course was actually where I discovered that I was a medical intuitive. And one of her other coaches, or two of them, are medical intuitives too. So she's very well adept into opening up and bringing out spiritual gifts. And I have people ask me all the time if I can help them with that, and I feel so ill-equipped, but Des is amazing at that. Sorry guys, this was not meant to be a planned commercial for Radiant Coaches Academy, but Des was here and I couldn't not tell you guys about her because it was so life-changing for me. So I'm going to end our class tonight. Until next time, everyone have a beautiful night. Thank you so much. I'm sending you all my love and my healing. And if you have any questions or need support, you know where to find me.